Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 SimPilot, and today we're going to take a look at a modification for the default A320neo in Microsoft Flight Simulator. A group of people have taken the time and effort to add some systems, so we'll have a look at those and see how they compare to the real aircraft. And of course this modification is ongoing, so we'll take regular looks at it as it goes through its different stages. There are a few things missing in the default A320neo as we've seen so far, so it'll be interesting to see what they've managed to add, and I look forward to the progress of the project. This isn't a criticism at all. As we go through, I will compare it to what I would expect, and if I say something isn't quite right, I'm not criticizing the project in any way. It is purely just an observation, because I know they're working very hard to keep adding features to it, and I have no idea how they even managed to get it this far. It's an amazing achievement on their part and must have taken a lot of work. So let's get started and have a look. Okay, so here we are in the flight deck, and what I'm going to have to do to show you these differences is power up the airplane, and then we'll start up the engines and we'll just have a look at what's been added. I can't do a full power up and start up tutorial just yet. There's a few too many differences that make it quite difficult for me to get that done at the moment, but as this mod develops and as the A320 develops in Flight Simulator, hopefully we'll be able to make that possible in a more complete way. What I recommend doing for now is using the built-in Microsoft Flight Simulator checklist, because it is really good for getting this aircraft up and running on your own, even from a cold and dark state like this. As you can see, everything's powered down and all we have is this little light saying avail. To get it into this state, simply choose a gate as your starting point when you are loading up the Flight Simulator. So you choose your airport and then you can zoom in and select on an individual gate, or you can use the drop-down list instead of a departure runway. I've had a lot of requests for this video, but if you need help installing it, you've probably already seen, but there are two other YouTube videos out there, at least at the moment, that show how to get it installed. So I highly recommend watching those, one by Squirrel and one by Drawya. So I'll provide links to those in the description if you need help installing it, because they've done a better job than I'll do showing you here. Okay, so let's get it powered up and have a look at some of these differences. Straight away, if I look on the overhead panel, a big difference now is that the ADIRs are actually already set to off. The ADIRs are what we use for providing all sorts of information into the aeroplane. They are effectively like the gyroscopes in your smaller aircraft, although they're fancier systems now that use sort of all sorts of lasers and whatnot. But they let the aircraft know where it is. There's 3 of them, so they will talk to each other. They can talk to the flight control computers. They provide our pitch and heading information and all sorts of things like that. So at the moment they are off, and they normally would be. When we power up the airplane, we can switch them on and let them align, which is now modeled thanks to this mod. So that's great. So what we'll do is, as I said, we'll use this checklist, and I won't talk through the checklist too much because I've already done that once and the video ran on far too long. We're getting a strange glitch out the windows there. I don't know what's going on there. So what we'll do is we'll just run through this. So battery switches can come on. They are on, and we'll tick that. External power comes on. That comes on. Tick that. Engine generators on, well, they're already on with fault light displayed, which is correct. That's how they would normally be left. Bleed air switches are on. Yeah, they are on as long as the lights are out. That's what you'd expect. So that's fine. So we'll tick that. Now, this is the difference. The first, or the second difference now they've added in is the APU page down here, and even the door page now. So if we have a look, it says door oxy, which is what it would say at this stage. This page would automatically be here. So this is a nice addition and a good piece of detail that it automatically powers up to roughly this page. There are a few other things that would happen in the real aircraft, but they're mostly just they're not too important. This is what you'd expect on the ground, powered up. The Airbus knows which stage of flight it's at, so it will show you the most appropriate page. So on the ground, on stand here, it knows that it needs to show us the door oxygen page so we can see where the cabin doors are and so on. What this is telling us is all these green boxes are different doors. So we've got the forward doors, aft doors. These are the overwing exits. We've got cargo holds, and we've even got avionics doors, although I highly doubt they're modelled. I mean, I haven't seen a flight simulator with them modelled yet, although there may be one out there. So what we can do is, if I minimize that and call up air traffic control before we start the APU, we'll go to ground services, tune Zurich grounds, and then we're going to request a jetway connection.
Zurich ground, Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray 320, could you please connect the jetway to the aircraft?
And here it comes, which is a nice detail built into Flight Simulator from the start, so I like that a lot. In it comes, and then that will attach to the door. And they've added, fantastically, this. So it now goes amber and says cabin door. Now we get a master warning. That's not the correct master warning sound, but also you wouldn't get a master warning because again the Airbus knows where it is. So that's something that I know has already been reported. But there we go. Look at that. Fantastic. We get the cabin door displayed there, and it works as well for the baggage service. So these are quite big additions really for this page. So that's great. And there we go. Cargo door opens. I don't know if we go outside. Can we see these things open? Yes, we can. There we go. So now it all starts to tie in a little bit better. So just a few of these features being added to give it that extra level of detail and immersion, which is really nice, especially given the hard work that must have gone into this. So there we go. Let's go back to our checklist, and it says AP master switch on. So as I said, the Airbus knows what page it wants to display here. You can always choose it, but it often knows. So for example, master switch goes on, and we look down here, and it automatically brings up the APU page, and you get power to the system. So this is the end speed, the speed of the engine, and the EGT, the exhaust gas temperature. Now there's a misconception that you need to wait until it says flap open. That's not true in the real aircraft, although I know in this you do need to wait or it doesn't work. In the real aircraft, you press master switch on, you wait 3 seconds, and then you can press start. But in this one, it makes you wait until flap open. I don't know why, so I've seen that talked about in a few other videos, so I just thought I'd say that. Yeah, you don't need to wait in the real aircraft, so hopefully that gets changed. But what works really nicely is this page looks great. It looks just like the APU page in the aircraft. We've got the generator up here, which only really comes online as it spools up to higher speeds, basically 100%. As it starts up, the exhaust gas temperature gets very hot, which is accurate, and then as that speed increases, that temperature reduces, which is correct. That's what the APU does. It's pretty much self-contained. The APU manages itself pretty well. We rarely need to intervene. It will auto shut down if it isn't happy and things like that. We've also got bleed up here, which is talking about bleed air, and that's what we use on the ground to provide air conditioning if we don't have any air plugged in from outside the aircraft. So it takes a bit of time to spool up, which they've also corrected. So they added in this delay because it was a bit too quick before, which is quite accurate. So I like that a lot. And now we'll see it spool up, and as it does, the generator will come online and then it will become available. Whilst it's starting, the overhead panel stays on this blue on, and that's all we see, which is correct. And now as it's finally spools up to 100% basically, we get avail, the generator comes online. That will be 400 hertz, 115 volts, which is about right. And we've got bleed pressure here, although because of this cross line, it shows me it's not using the bleed. And that's all working, and you can see the EGT has reduced. In the real aircraft, once the EGT has started to reduce, the limit actually follows it down. It tries to make sure it doesn't rise again, just in case there's a problem with the start. And up here, it now goes to avail, which is correct. So now it says avail. The APU generator has taken the electrical load. We've got the APU generator switch on, which is how it nearly always is. You very rarely, if ever, touch that except for abnormal checklists. So APU master switch we've turned on. We've started the APU. We've got available lit. And it says APU bleed on. In the real aircraft, we wait a bit now. We let it warm up. So I'll just let that run for a little bit. And then we can get rid of the external power. But we can get rid of the external power now if we want to. So I will. External power off. That goes to avail, saying it's available, but we're not using it. And down here, we are using the APU. Sadly, the electrical page is not modeled yet, but you can see that they've enabled all the buttons. So I can tell there's more coming, and I know that they're working very hard on the Discord at these other things. But there are some pages sort of half working for now. So let's go back to the door page, which is about what we would expect to be on. Next thing I want to show you, again, this is not how things are done in the aircraft in order, but let's have a look at the ADs and turning them on. So we have System 1, System 2, System 3. We always talk about them in that order in case we have to use an abnormal checklist and fiddle with them. But it goes 1 is on the left for the P1 or captain side, number 2 is on the right for the first officer, and number 3 is in the middle, which is the standby or backup system. So we rotate these to nav. In the real aircraft, you'd get a little on bat light here, but it's not modeled at the moment. So we can just put these all to nav. And then it will spend some time aligning. What it's doing when it aligns is just leveling all of the gyroscopes and so on to make sure they're ring laser gyros and things like that inside it. Although, I mean, someone far more qualified than me will be able to talk about this in more detail if you're interested, I'm sure. But now they are aligning, and we get the IRS in align message on here, which is great. The real aircraft does say this. It also gives you a countdown eventually, so it will say more than 7 minutes, and then it will finally reduce down. So that's a nice detail. To align the IRSs in a modern aircraft like this, we don't actually have to do a whole lot. It would do the init page. So let's do Lima Sierra Zulu Hotel, Zurich, which is where we are, and let's fly to Gatwick, Echo Golf Kilo Kilo. And if I enter that, once you've done that, it aligns for you in here. In the real aircraft, it can use the GPS and it will say, oh, well, I know where you are, and it will just align. In the older aircraft, you may need to tell it. But there we go. So that's now entered, and then you get the lat and long, and it will just go straight into a line. So now we've done that, you can see that what we had here before was a blank PFT. In fact, let me turn those off to show you again. Right, so this is what we had before. We had this blank screen. And this is typical. This is what you would find on the aircraft when you arrive at it without those turned on. This is because it doesn't know which way is up, it doesn't know left or right, and it doesn't know where it is. So those ADIs feed into a lot of systems, so you lose the whole thing. We do have our standby instrument though. This does not run off System 3. It's a different instrument. System 3 is in the background, and in the real aircraft you can switch to it here. But they've added these screens now, which is excellent detailing. So that is really nice. That's what you'd expect to see. And GPS primary lost. It's warning us because it's just not really powered up. So let's put them back into a line. And what you can see is once they're in a line, you fairly quickly get the BFT looking like normal. So they've modeled that quite well, because this does come back quite quickly, because the aircraft just needs them to be spinning basically, and it can create an artificial horizon in attitude heading mode. But it takes a little bit longer for it to work out where it is exactly in the world. So that's what it's doing at the moment, and that's why it says IRS in a line. A nice piece of detailing they've added is this GPS primary lost message. This will be here, and then it will go to GPS primary when it's all working. And we've already seen on the Discord that it does stay for pretty much all the time, but that's not quite accurate. It would disappear. This is a messages area where messages do show up. What I do like is that what they've added is now when you change the mode on here, you get mode change written, which is correct. And as you can see, none of these are available. They're all still waiting. So this is really good detail here. But plan mode does work, which is accurate. The airplane can show you plan mode even there. So if I scrolled, I can still scroll through that on plan. The only thing that's not accurate, you wouldn't see the aircraft here. It doesn't know it's there yet, but still, there we go. So that is really nice. Yeah, they've done a great job with that. Right, so while we're waiting for that to align, let's think about passenger comfort. Seatbelt signs can now be moved. It's a shame I don't hear a ding. You can just about hear it in the aircraft from the flight deck, so it'd be nice if they eventually add that sound effect, or someone does. But there we go. Let's have the seatbelt signs on because the fuel is on board, and let's think about getting the APU bleed online. So again, I'm going to just show you these pages first down here. So if we go to the APU page, here's the bleed. It's got 35 psi and a cross line, which is correct. That's what it would look like. And the bleed page, it shows a cross line here. When you turn on the bleed, that will show it will transition into a straight line that connects through, and then it's supplying the packs. Now, the rest of this page isn't really modeled. This little logo here, you don't ever see. It would either be one or the other, and the bleeds aren't modeled because obviously with the engines turned off, these valves would be cross-lined as well. So it's just really the APU section that works. But let's turn that on. Right, APU bleed on, and let's look back down, and there it goes into line. And if I go to APU, there it is, feeding through. So yeah, all very nice. They've also made it so that in the fuel page, the fuel burn is a bit more realistic, and you can see that the APU is burning fuel out of the left-hand tank only. It doesn't feed from the right-hand tank, so the fuel figure in here will reduce. So what I'm going to do now, I can tick that. We've already turned off the external power and turn on the fuel pumps. Let's go and get pushback and engine starts. So this is another nice detail. If I go to the doors page, helps if I can actually zoom in and read them. Doors, there we go. Let's close up that door. So we'll go to air traffic control. Jetway disconnection.
Zurich ground, Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray 320. Could you please disconnect the jetway from the aircraft?
And there we go. The door has closed. And that's pretty good. something you're going to do before you start up the engines in real life. So let's get rid of that and let's get the checklist back. It says beacon on. Absolutely, that's the red lights that will warn the ground crew. Thrust levers, you need to check they're at idle for sure. So let's get the beacon on. But what that will do is it will arm the slides, which is a nice detail as well. So beacon on, slides come on here, which is, yeah, pretty much right. Airlines will have different procedures as to when they want those slides armed, but that's how it does appear on that page. So that's now on. So again, another piece of great detail they've added. Right, here we go. Thrust levers are idle. Engine mode selected to ignition starts. Now you can start engines on stand, and that's what we'll do today because I've had trouble with the with the pushback out of this stand before. So you'd get permission from air traffic control, of course, and ground crew would tell you that it's clear all around. Right, so engine mode selector to ignition start. So when you do that, this should change to the engine page because that's what you're going to be looking at while you start the engines. And it does. Brilliant. Really good that that works like that. Some slight errors here in not the modification, but in the default Airbus aircraft. This is an EIS1 screen, which somebody pointed out when I referred to it in one of my first videos on this simulator. It's an old style screen. It's from the more original style Airbuses, and it has some extra information here normally, which is why it looks so strange having this blank area. You don't see this on the Neo aircraft, or I certainly haven't. I could be proven wrong. But there we go. So this is a little strange, but we've got fuel used, oil quantity, we've got PSI and temperature of the oil, and then we've got the starting area. So this should show us our PSI, because when you put that mode selected to ignition, it should divert the air from the packs over here. Now this isn't to do with the modification, this is to do with the default Airbus. But anyway, let's go and start up the engine. So if I put the master onto 2, now it shows the PSI and the inline valve. And also this ignition, it should show the ignition for each side, and it will only use one side for ignition. So it will use either, each side has an A and a B, and you'll only use A or B on each start, and it alternates between them between starts. It can use both, or you can use both for a manual start. But anyway, that's very very detailed level to be worrying about. And like I say, that's all part of the default Airbus. And here we go, increasing. N2 increases, so you're spinning the engine and then you put in fuel, so you get fuel flow here, and along with the igniters igniting that fuel, you get the acceleration up to idle thrust. And there goes that engine. Different airlines will have different policies on when the engine is stabilized. The modern aircraft will say avail up here to tell you. It doesn't say that in this sim at the moment, but we can look up and see that generators are online, the engine's parameters have all stabilized. And now we'll start engine 1. This valve should shut now because it's done starting the engine. It should have shut even before the engine's fully stabilized. That closes and the engine sort of accelerates on its own. Let's start engine 1. So that goes on. Same again, we get that PSI, and it should only show the ignition A or B, and it should show that once the fuel flow is going in and the aircraft's trying to ignite the engine. So as we can see, this engine now accelerating, all looking very nice. And you can see the fuel used counting up, and like I say, they've adjusted the fuel usage in this to make it a bit more representative of the actual aircraft. So hopefully your SimBrief flight plans can work a bit more accurately now. I know there is a patch coming for Flight Simulator very soon, so I don't know if that's going to change anything about this aircraft, so we shall see. This video could be redundant by the time I release it. And there we go, that engine is now stabilized. Again, this should all close to show you it's done. But final detail then from this modification, I'll put that back to norm. And tick these items, and they're stabilized. After start engine, here we go. AP bleed off, AP master switch off. So I go up here, AP bleed can come off, AP master switch can come off because the generators are now running from the engine, and I can go to the APU page, and just like it would, it just spools down. Now it does take a while to spool down, which is accurate. The aircraft is a bit slow, it doesn't immediately turn off. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't spool down this slowly. It actually sits there cooling off a little bit without the APU bleed load and things like that. And then eventually when it decides it's happy, it will just shut itself off. And this actually spools down quite quickly when it does that. But it is representative of how long it takes the whole process. Once that's spooled down, the flap will close on its own. And then away we go. So that's it for today's video. I hope it's been interesting for you, just to show you some of the hard work that's been going on. They have a Discord where they're working hard at adding more features to this modification, and we'll also see what Microsoft bring in their own updates to this airplane. So I'm very excited for the future of it and to see where it gets to. As always, these videos aren't for any real world use, it's just for our use in Flight Simulator at home. And I'll be doing more to look at other modifications and what updates we get onto the aircraft. I've got more tutorials to come. I've got some Explain 11 videos where we look at some more detailed systems that aren't yet available in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So if you'd like to see those, do please subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you again in a video soon. Thank you very much for watching.